Ekemini Uwan is a public theologian and host of the award-winning podcast Truth's Table and Get in the Word with Truth's Table. She is also the co-author of Truth's Table, Black Women's Musing on Life, Love, and Liberation, which after this interview became recommended as a spiritual book read in Oprah's book club. Ekemini was also part of the groundbreaking movie Unspoken, produced by the Jude 3 Project. And she is also a contributing writer for Hallmark Mahogany, and her writings have been published in the Atlantic and the Washington Post. She is one who is passionate about theology and has a fierce commitment to the gospel and its implication for issues pertaining to racial injustice, racism, and white supremacy. And after this interview, I'm sure you'll be glad you met and heard about Ekemini Uwan. Greetings, you're watching Conversations with Hutch, and I'm so honored. I mean, honored is really not a fabulous enough word to tell you how I feel about having this guest on with me. We have Ekemini Uwan with us, and as we have our conversation, you're going to learn more about her. Ekemini, welcome to Conversations with Hutch.
Thank you for having me, Reverend Hutchinson. Should I call you Reverend Hutch? Let me call you Reverend
Hutch. Reverend Hutch, Dr. Hutch. Just don't call me Johnson and we cool.
All right now.
Well, let's start out this way. Tell us about your background. You were born in California, right?
Yes. I'm a Cali girl. Born and raised in the Bay Area, California. I'm the daughter of Nigerian immigrants, so that makes me, I think, technically second generation Nigerian American. My parents came here in the early 70s and had me and my siblings. And I grew up in the faith, grew up as a Christian, but did not actually come to a saving faith until college. And so around 2004 is when the Lord came and got me, and I thank God. And honestly, since then, by God's grace, I have been running for Jesus since then. So that, I've been running with Jesus for a long time now, long enough to now to say to the younger folks, to say, just keep on living, as they used to say to me. I think I can now say that. And so, but yeah, it's been a real honor and privilege to be a child of God and to be brought into the kingdom of light and transferred from the kingdom of darkness. And just trying to do the work of the Lord faithfully in the way that God chooses, right? So,
well, God has already used you in some unique ways. And let me back us up for a minute. I want to unpack some of what you said. Now, you're the child of immigrants. Now, we have this narrative, and I guess the reason I'm a little bit sensitive to what you just said, my parents were Jamaican.
Okay, yes.
So the whole narrative of the Black immigrant to many is unusual. If you don't live on the left coast or the right coast, as I did in the Bronx, you may not have been exposed to the Black immigrant. Then when we start talking about the diaspora, people in London, people in different places. I have relatives in about 9 different countries.
Yes.
So what was that like growing up, kind of navigating that water and also navigating your household? Because I'm sure if yours was like mine, when you went home, Nigeria was very present in the house. And then when you left the house to, African Americanness. So kind of speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I always say this, I say, I don't know if I had a unique, and maybe I just had a really unique upbringing in that I didn't experience much angst or conflict with my Black identity. So my Nigerianness and my Americanness, I wasn't like this existential clash and like crisis. I just didn't experience that. I know that is probably common for a lot of Black immigrants. And descendants of Black immigrants. That's not my narrative, and that's not my story.
Good.
When I went and I growing up in my home, my parents, and probably they wouldn't have articulated it this way, but they had a very Pan-African ethos. And so growing up, my dad threw house parties every weekend. Like, I grew up watching Soul Train, where my mom would braid my hair and thread my hair, which is a traditional Nigerian hairstyle. And so my dad had friends from all over the diaspora, the continent and the diaspora. So a lot of Black American friends, a lot of Cameroonian friends, Ghanaian, Caribbean friends. So I never really dealt with, like, in this home, you're Nigerian. That was never, my parents were never like, you're not like them. They never said that. In fact, they always emphasized the fact that Black Americans are our cousins because of the transatlantic slave trade. They were always very clear about that. There was no, like, questions or angst about that, and so that's how I've always moved through the world. And so I've not really seen I never compartmentalized my own Nigerian culture or upbringing, because my parents kind of seamlessly wove that together. Like, my mom would make baked chicken for us. She would make spaghetti for us. She make that because she knew we probably didn't really want fufu like that, So I don't know. My parents, they knew that they were having American kids, and so that's why they gave me and my siblings Nigerian names, because they're like, these are some American kids, and if we don't give them something, they're not gonna have nothing. You know what I mean? And so we got to give them something. Right. And so they gave us, Nigerian names, specifically Ibibio names, which I'm grateful for. Now, I was not grateful for it for many, many years, but now I am. So yeah, I did not experience that. And I thank God for my parents in that way. They did not raise us in that way to see a difference. And so there's never been a conflict. Like, we've always had, we grew up with Black folks, and they've always been like family to us and vice versa, right? And this is back in the day when you used to know your neighbors and hang out and play tag and do all that stuff. I don't think
each other's homes, and
I don't think the kids do that anymore, but but that's what we used to do. Yeah. And so, the neighborhood kids, we have that fictive kinship, and so that's how we grew up. I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, I grew up in a similar way, and I raised that. I kind of felt you were going to answer that way, because I had the same experience. And in this era now, and I don't want to get too controversial, but, when we talk about ADOS and some of that separation and some of that angst, really, when you start looking at diaspora, many of us, grew up with sort of the Pan-African mindset.
Absolutely.
We realized that we had a different background.
Absolutely.
But we realized we were the same. My mother used to say, they dropped us off the ship like grass gets seeds. They just scattered us.
Yeah.
So in other words, we're all the same.
That's right.
Just different destinations. All right, so now, here's the next piece of your journey I want to kind of unpack, because sometimes when people hear public theologian, sometimes when people hear award-winning podcast journalist, sometimes when they hear author, they think that you just kind of floated from the ether on a pedestal to get the way you are. I know. So basically, when you grew up in the Bay Area, I believe when I did my research, you of course went to college and then went into the corporate life.
Mm-hmm.
You were there trying to, I guess, fulfill the American dream. And now, did you grow up with a silver spoon in your mouth? I'm just curious.
No, I did not. I definitely grew up in low-income housing in the Bay Area, which is how we were able to be in the Bay Area. Okay, because if you know anything about specifically Silicon Valley, you know, it's very expensive. So we grew up in low income housing, did not grow up with a lot of money at all. Never had a silver spoon in my mouth. Still ain't got no silver spoon. So, but that's all right. My reward is in glory. Okay, my the crown of life awaits. My mansion awaits. And so, but you know, we didn't grow up with a lot of money. You know, didn't grow up with a lot of money at all. Due to circumstances, my mom had to be the breadwinner because my father fell ill. And so I grew up very fast, you know, as the oldest child, did a lot of co-parenting. And so I was a parentified child due to circumstances. And so I've had to fight for everything I've got till this day by even with ministry and things like that, having to really, you know, people by and large do not support Black women with funds, with support. And so it's hard for Black creatives like myself who have these giftings and these callings. And you launch out by faith and because of God's calling and because you want to please the Lord and because you love the Lord, you do it, and you love the church, right? You love the saints, and you love those who haven't yet come into the faith. And so, because you have that kingdom mindset and mandate, but it's tough. You know what I mean? Trying to make $1 out of 15 cents is not easy, and oftentimes that's what we are doing as Black women creators, and that's what I have been doing as a public theologian. You know, and so when God called me to this, you know, I was in corporate America, you know, I was doing well for myself. And then, you know, I lost my job and they got rid of our whole sales district. And that was very disorienting. And I just remember during that time period of unemployment, praying and asking the Lord what the Lord wanted me to do, you know, and I just kept hearing ministry, even though I was like, well, I'm deeply involved in my church, intercessory prayer. I teach and lead a discipleship course. I do altar calls on Sunday at church. Like, what else can I do, Lord? I just kept on hearing ministry. And I was like, okay, maybe if that's the case, then I need to go to seminary. And so I just looked up a non-denominational seminary because I was at a Black non-denominational church. And so that's really how I ended up, you know, choosing where I went, which is not, you know, non-denominational. And and so then I moved to Philadelphia to go and study and go into seminary, not knowing why I was going, just knowing that that's God wanted me to go to seminary, but I didn't know what the purpose was. I thought in my mind, okay, I'll go get this degree. I'll go back and serve in my local church and get a job, and do the same work I was doing before. But that is not what happened.
God said no.
That's not what happened at all.
Well, let me put a pin right there. And maybe I'm hearing my experience and your experience. So that's why I'm getting ready to ask this question.
Okay.
How did your mother and your relatives respond to you saying, I have this call.
All right.
And I have to honor this call. And now I have to go to this call. I mean, did you have any preachers in your family? Any persons that have gone in the ministry in this level? I'm just curious as to how they heard it and how they responded.
Yeah. It's a good question, especially given the immigrant background, because you know what they want you to do. Doctor, lawyer, nurse, these the options. But my parents were not like that. Again. Good. They were not like that. Their requirement was you go to college. Yeah. Now, what you want to do there, we're not going to dictate that to you, but we just want you to have a degree. And so, which I agree. I am grateful for that. You know, that's a blessing. A lot of people cannot say that. So I'm really grateful. I don't think I always knew what I had in my parents, and I'm so grateful that the Lord saw fit to give me the parents that He chose for me, and so and the parents He knew I needed. And so, so I, by the time this has happened, my dad had already passed. And so it's just my mom. And when I came to faith, I think my family observed like a significant difference. Like I was really a different person, a new person. And they know I was very, very serious about my faith. And that's how I am too. Like anything I do, I don't really do half-heartedly. I'm either gonna go all the way in or I'm not gonna go at all. And so that's how I am. So yeah, I just don't do anything, halfway, but when it came to this, and when it seemed like the Lord was leading me to seminary, I think they were confused. I think they were confused. They didn't quite understand. And I was a little confused too. I didn't understand, right? So I was like, I don't know. I mean, I was like, I wish I could give you more answers. I just know that this is—
No, those are the credible answers, because a lot of times when God leads you, God gives you a portion of what you need to know. And you have to just walk it out by faith. You can't see it. God knows where God is leading you, and you just have to follow. It's not blind faith, because God gives you enough that you can move forward and operate, but it is indeed faith. So you telling them what you heard probably in some way perplexed them, but you were perplexed.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I was like, y'all confused? I'm confused too. Okay. I'm just trying to be obedient, So yeah, but God gives you just enough light for the next step, and that's what it is. And then light for the next and the next, and sometimes it takes a while for that light to come. But yeah. And so I was like, I don't know. This just kind of seems to be where the Lord is leading me. Again, these are degree people that are, have a high proclivity toward collecting degrees. And so I think they were amenable to me getting a grad degree. They probably envision more an MBA or some other degree, some other master's, right? My dad had.
I know, we cut it short, but check this out. Support her podcast and also buy the book that you can find at any bookstore or at Amazon.com. And check it out if you want to see what's coming up next. We have the rest of the interview, but the way to make sure you see it is to subscribe. Hit the subscribe button, and we will thank you very much. See you real soon.